This video is about the AMCD list 4D commands file. AMCD stands for ArchiveMethod component data. We look at the setup of the ArchiveMethod component AMC. We can look at the resources file, and we will see one of the text files in that resources file is the AMCD list 4D commands text file. We can briefly look at that file. It simply contains a listing with some information about the many commands included in 4D. Now I'll go ahead and show the purpose of this text file. Basically, it contains information in the form of text about all the commands of 4D. So we'll go ahead and look at a 4D database, and we'll look at a specific method here, just some random method. And I'm going to go ahead and select any command and highlight that command. We will go to the macro menu and choose Command Info to Clipboard. What this will do is place information about this command on the clipboard. If I go to a text editor, I can go ahead and paste that information into a file. Now this is formatted simply with spaces and contains information from the online resources provided by 4D. If I look at reduced selection in the online document, in most ways the online documentation is prettier. We have this formatting with green arrows here. In addition to the summary at the top, we have a description below and some examples. And that's true for any command in 4D. The advantage of this simple text document is that it's more immediately available, and it's formatted in such a way that you can paste the text into the method editor itself. This is sometimes useful in terms of self-documenting the code. I'll highlight that command again, get the information placed onto the clipboard, and simply paste it down below here. Now I have a description of the command and some of the details about how it should be used. Notice this particular command does not have any extensive description, purely the parameters and the name of the command itself. And that's true of many of the 4D commands. But now let's go to this selection to array command. Again, we'll place the information on the clipboard. And I'll go ahead and paste it here. And this time, there is more information. Unlike the earlier situation, we can now see a description here. More information has been copied than simply the command name itself and its parameters. There's an actual description down here. It's very easily pasted into the method because it's already been formatted as a comment. If you play with this technique, you will find that sometimes you end up with just the parameters, and sometimes you end up with the more extensive description. Something like order by is such a commonly used command that you probably don't need to look at its information. But again, if you need to, you can paste the information about that command right underneath it. This is an example of one that does not have a text description. It simply has the parameter listing. Some commands in 4D are not used that commonly and can be complex enough to be hard to remember. Let's say I wanted to use this command, but it's not a command that I use frequently. I'll go ahead and highlight it and paste the information about that command below. Generally, there's one line that can be used as a template for the command, and I'll go ahead and grab that line and paste it in. Now I have all the parameters pre-populated in that line. The function result in this case is a Boolean. I can go ahead here and substitute contents for the pattern, the string, and the start. And now this command is ready to go, assuming that these local variables have been assigned some sensible values. I can, of course, leave this information right here in the text forever, and when I come back to this method in the future, I will have a ready reference. Sometimes I'll go ahead and erase it after I've used it. Sometimes I'll just take all these notes and paste them at the end of the method for a reference when I come back to this a year later. I'll have something to jog my memory about how match regex works. Another example might be a command such as get text keywords. It's not that commonly used in my own coding, and I can't quite remember the details. So we'll go ahead and get the information about the command. Paste it right underneath the command. And here we have the information that is needed. There are some commands in 4D that are quite complex with many parameters. An example is listbox getArrays. We can go ahead and find out about that command. As I suggested earlier, you can get a template of this command and substitute in the array names that you're using to store these values, working your way along this command to make sure that the parameters are provided in the correct order. And below you can see which data needs to be input and which data is being output. You can see the convention of an arrow to the right of where data is being input, and where data is being returned is symbolized by the arrow to the left. This is helpful for some of these complex commands, of which listbox getArrays is an example. The file that has all this information comes with a distribution of ArchiveMethod, but you can create a modified version of that file, and I'll go ahead and show how that is done. We will open the ArchiveMethod database, and I'll draw your attention to the item underneath the View menu called Commands of 4D. Here we see a listing of all the 4D commands. Occasionally on the right side you will see a description associated with a command. If it's one of the commands with a description, then that description will be available to be pasted into the code. Here is a button labeled Create Text File for Component Data. If I click on this button, it will create a text file called AMCD List 4D Commands that has all this information in it, and which can be placed in the correct location relative to the AMC component and act as a source for the information in the macro. Since this file already comes with a distribution of ArchiveMethod, the question arises, why would I want to make this second copy? The reason is that you can modify its content to your heart's content and create a customized version. Then you can replace the original file in the AMC's resource folder with the new one that you've created. So I'll go ahead and look at method getCode. This is a method that does not have a short description. In this window, you can create your own customized description that's suitable for you. There are tools here designed to get you started, but ultimately you can create whatever description you want. Down here at the bottom is the long description, which is the raw material, essentially copied from 4D's online documentation. The long description copy is essentially the same, but the line width has been set so that the description does not go off indefinitely to the right side when you paste this into your code. The slider up here allows you to adjust the length of those lines to select your particular style. You can make the line short or you can make the lines longer. Once I've adjusted the line length to fit my particular style, I'll go ahead and click on the Move to Short Description button, which is where all the final modifications can be done. That code has been somewhat formatted to fit your style. Now I can decide, well, I don't really need this information down here, so I'll simply erase it. And if there's some part of this description that's not clear to you, you can just rewrite it. Ultimately, if you click on Accept, you now have a description for this code, and when you use the command info macro, this is the description that will show up. I'm going to go ahead and look at the get text keywords command. To find that, I'll just type keywords here. Wait a couple seconds, and here's the command in question. When I read the 4D description of this command originally, it was not clear to me whether these variations of camel would be considered unique when you are using the asterisk parameter. So I did my own testing, and they seem to be considered identical. So I've left a note to myself to that effect. I've added this to my personalized version of this documentation. So when I paste this information into my code in the future, this additional sentences down here will be included. It's also occasionally useful simply to use the ArchiveMethod database to look up 4D commands, particularly when you're trying to find some command that you're having difficulty uncovering in the official documentation. You might remember a single word from that command, but do not remember it in its entirety. Let's just type in the word method here. Wait a couple seconds, and now we're looking at all of the commands in 4D that include the word method, and that may help us find the command that we're looking for. In addition, you can search actually in the description itself. I'll go ahead and look for the word Unicode, and the list will be filtered down to a few methods where somewhere in the description the word Unicode appears. If you find the command that you're looking for, you can put it on the clipboard and then simply go back to your work and paste that information into your code editor. Thanks for your attention.